Hey everybody, welcome again to another episode 11 of The Internet Needs to Calm the Hell Down About Games. I'm K-Med, my man Gascles, and I have started this show. We're past 2 months, almost 3 months into this thing, and basically you're joining us for a talk about games that we've played, games that we're playing, and just other shit talk that we hear around the internet, controversies or news or both. And yeah, that's kind of the rhythm of the show. Um, we usually get started by first asking, hey, how are you, man? How's the new year? It's the first episode of this year. We took a break for a week over the holidays, but we're back. How's life treating you?
Sorry, double muted there. Which is much the norm during the workday, but it should be a little different when we're podcasting. So, no, everything's been pretty decent. I did a lot of soul searching while I was on break and figured out like what I wanted to play and how I wanted to handle streaming and the podcast and things like that. So I did a lot of I make lots of lists. So I did what I felt like was a fairly good job of laying all that stuff out and kind of making some key decisions. It's not all necessarily rational and logical, so it has a lot of litmus testing and hypothesis testing to go through and see how it plays out. But I did have that downtime to kind of go through that philosophical exercise. So things are starting
Nice,
off
nice,
well. So
nice.
I'm good to go with
Yeah,
the
no,
gaming
I've
for 2021.
awesome, awesome. Yeah, and I did a little bit of that myself. I had some time off. Just kind of recentered. 2020 was kind of a crazy year for everybody, so I'm just gonna try to harness some of that energy and maybe turn it around, make it more positive, and just looking forward to new shit this year. We're gonna have new games and new things to play and new stuff to talk about. So I'm hoping that it'll be a better year since since we kind of all went into slide last year. Yeah, so I guess with that we can probably get started. I'll tell you what's up in my gaming world right now. I didn't get as much gaming as I wanted in over the break, but I did get some in. I went ahead and stopped playing Call of Duty just entirely, and I bought the Destiny Season Pass, and I grinded that for a while. And I've been playing that, and it feels, anybody out there that's playing it on the consoles versus um, PC, there used to be just this huge um, rift between console and PC in terms of frame rate and just the smoothness of the game. And with the new consoles, we're getting these 4K 60 frames per second performance on the PS5 and the Xbox. Now I think the PS5 too, and it just feels very very smooth. I've played it on PC before, but I didn't have anybody that played it on the PC. My friends were playing it at the time, so I went on the Xbox and playing Destiny in on OLED in 4K at 60 frames a second is a good experience. So it definitely sucked me back in. However, regardless of how much fun how much fun the gameplay is, the guns, the shooting, I'm really liking handguns again and hand cannons again, where when I was playing at 30 frames a second it seemed off. I don't know what it was. Like I thought it was maybe a mouse versus joystick thing, but I think it's almost more of a frame rate smoothness versus input device deal. But either way, regardless of all that, if it feels amazing, looks amazing, there's so much to do. I hit level 30 on the season pass, and I'm at the point where grinding out light levels is like 1 point at a time, and I'm bored again. and I knew it was going to happen. And it's fine. I mean, I paid what, $10 for a season pass. If I stop now, no big deal. But Destiny has this weird, like, a bell curve of what you do, and then it feels really good, and progression feels really good, and then wham, you just hit this wall. I feel like where the casual just drops off. Like there's nothing else for me to do as a solo, casual player. You just They build this giant wall where now it's like, oh shit, now I got to spend, 4 hours a day, every day, if I want to grind out all my pinnacle gear or all this other shit. Anyway, I mean that's just my gripe. Destiny is beautiful. It's free, and on Game Pass you get all the expansions too. I mean, it's a great value. You get a lot of good game time out of it. I probably have 700 hours in Destiny, but it's just that wall, and I hit it every season. Every time I'm like, all right, here I go. Like I'm gung ho, I'm ready, I'm in this. I got the season pass, I got the lore, I'm reading it. I got my hunter cape on, I'm cosplaying, I'm sitting down, and it just kills me, dude. It hits this wall, and I find myself more than a casual in terms of like I know what's coming, and it still hurts physically and emotionally. It just kills me. So I don't know how casual players can play this game. I mean, to be honest, I guess if they don't give a fuck and just, play the PvP maybe, I have no idea, but it's definitely not built for, a super casual type of player. You got to commit to Destiny 2, in my opinion, to really get what they want you to get out of it, I think.
So it's going to be a weird conversation this year because in the soul searching that you and I both did, we're obviously looking to drink from different cups, and but there's crossover. But then I'm sensing that there's different takes on even the crossover where things are similar. So to me, so part of the soul searching that I did was just like kind of what you're talking about in that it's really difficult for me to get into something like The Last of Us, or even Part Two, or even or even Assassin's Creed Valhalla, where I go, hey, I'm gonna invest, 24 hours, 40 hours in this thing. If there's not a skill tree, as is the case with The Last of Us 2, where there is a skill tree, but in my opinion, it's fairly shallow, right? In what it provides, and how it makes a difference as you play through the game. Then it's hard for me to stick with it. And even where there is like a skill tree with something like Valhalla, it still makes it hard to stick with it when I go, I'm going to spend my 40 hours in this thing, or even a CyberPunk, which I chose not to buy in December. I wound up buying Call of Duty 3 times. So, it gets hard when I'm like, okay, I'm going to put my 40 hours into this, but like with with this game, which ends at some point, it's hard for me to stomach that when I could go over and play something like Destiny 2, where I'm going to put this time in now, and this time that I put in now is still going to offer me benefits 18 months from now. And so for me on Destiny 2, it's kind of weird because, I'd seen you mention this before, like on Twitter and whatnot, but like, for me, Destiny 2 has never been about leveling up, even though I'm saying that that's my current thing. Like, I only want games that have loot drops and levels, and
Right.
leveling is what my interest area is. But Destiny 2 to me has been, I mean, in terms of spirituality, right? Not necessarily, developer DNA or whatever, but like, Diablo was a thing, and it kind of was, in my opinion, like the first really great loot dropper,
I
right?
agree. Yeah.
And then we progressed on to Borderlands, which took that loot drop mechanic and started blending it with the first person shooter arena, which we hadn't really seen before, and we got the gun porn,
Yep.
and then
We
from
sure did.
there we went on to Destiny 2, which kind of took that whole like evolutionary progression and kind of sweetened it into, I wouldn't say a perfect formula, but a definite formula with stickiness to it.
Hmm.
For me, Destiny 2 has always been about that Destiny 2 to me has been like the greatest gun physics lab that I've ever played. Right? Like I just love Destiny 2 because of the gunplay. Like the gunplay feels
It feels good.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, there's almost no other game that has that kind of play. So no, I'm 100% with you on that.
Yeah, so when I go to Destiny 2, like I don't like and I have other friends who are deep. I mean, we've talked about like people who are deep into the lore and stuff, but even like I have friends who are deep into the lore, but focus mainly on like the single player or like the faux PvP in terms of Gambit, you know.
Yep.
But but they're not hardcore Crucible people, and so even without that, like they like you get into like the deep progression. Like they look up all the quests and figure out all the things they need to do to get all the armor and all the types of guns and I'm just and for me I like play Destiny 2. It feels like this great harmonious perfect gunplay lab and I'm like, hey, if I level up great, if I don't, great. I just love playing the gun physics engine. So it's just interesting to see and hear those. Like I never get tired of Destiny 2.
It's sad because I don't want to. Like it would. Shit, man. I could if I could play one game. Maybe it's my ADD. I have no idea, man. But if I could play one game and just buy some season passes now and again, fuck yeah, I'd do that. My wife would be so happy with vacations like twice a year instead of just once. But I don't know. Like I want all that shit. Like I want the shit you talk about, the armor, this other stuff, and I'm not paying for it. So, and you can't really do that. It's all cosmetics and shit in the Destiny store. So you can't pay for it like in some MMOs. So you got to grind for it, and the grind is just so ridiculous. And maybe I just have to accept defeat and just play it for what it is, and I have fun. But then I look at all these unattainables, based off of how many hours I can put into it, and it puts me off. So that's my kind of deal with that. Like I wish there was some medium in there. It feels like that bell curve is just that dip once you get there. Once they give you the newbie starter progression, and then they definitely make sure that you get leveled up fast enough so that you're not getting destroyed, right? Which is great because nobody wants to sit there and get one shot all day long. But then once you hit that, the grind becomes tedious to me, and maybe that's the way that I'm looking at it too. Like this is a grind, and it shouldn't be a grind. I should be enjoying it. And there's so many things to enjoy, but yet the lure of the fucking Osiris armor 2.0 is there, and it makes me want it. So I don't know, and I know that I'm kind of in the middle. I don't have enough time to be that hardcore, sweaty, player that can devote 8 hours. But I want to be more than a casual player that comes in for a couple hours a week and does things. So I don't know. Maybe I'm in a weird spot with that.
Now you're
Regardless, go ahead. Go ahead.
you're not wrong. I definitely get what you're saying, and I'm not. I can't even say that I don't feel that way. It's just maybe I just like made peace with that part of
Yeah,
myself.
and
Like, oh,
I don't think I have yet. Like I need to come to Jesus with
right.
Destiny because I it's still there, and I know it's every fucking season. Like you think, Kevin, you hit the wall how many times now, and you get in the car again, you see the wall, and you just drive straight into it. Like maybe just slow down, or I don't know. I always just burn myself out.
Yeah, I mean, like right off the bat, flat out, I don't play raids. Period.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah.
have I don't
I
have the
don't either.
time or the schedule to like find 7 other people or
No,
whatever it is to get together
not
with
happening.
and go into a thing that could potentially last anywhere from 2.5 to
To
8
8 hours.
hours.
I
Right?
know.
Like, that's just not happening. Right off
Nope.
the bat, that means
Nope.
there's content in the season pass you're not going to
Yep.
get to. Because there's always stuff that is tightly coupled to the notion of raid. And in general, like, I mean, same thing, I have that problem with Destiny 2 as well, which is, there's always certain things that you can only get to. I mean, good on them for kind of forcing you to get out of your comfort zone and go experience parts of the game that left to your own devices, you would never bother. Left to my own devices, I would have never bothered with Gambit. Would have never touched it.
That's true. That's true.
But there's stuff that you can get that you can only do if you participate in Gambit. So I get that.
And Gambit's fun.
Yeah.
I mean,
but I get you. It grates on me a little bit when there are things that, like, I just want to do the thing, and they're like,
right.
oh, no, you have to go do these 10 bounties.
Do this.
Like, we're not going to tell you where they are. We're not going to tell you how they are. They're in stinking, whatever they're called, undiscovered zones, or I forget what they're called, but they're little symbols on the map. That, like, for a while I couldn't find them.
Lost
like,
sectors.
No, lost sectors. Like, I had to just stop. Like, I had to just stop for a night, roll up the game, sit on the internet, and figure that whole mess out, and come back to it.
You know, and part of me, and maybe we're onto something. Okay, maybe it is the way that some of these quests happen. I just went through at least 3 different quests on this new season, Beyond Light expansion, and steps 1 of these quests were all things that I could attain solo in the world. Step 2, fucking PvP. You know what? Are you no, you just tricked me. So I don't even get anything. There's like no XP associated with it. There's nothing. It's just a step 1 of 3. And the second step is like kill 100 guardians. Well, fuck me. I'll be here until next spring then to kill 100. Are you shitting me? 100 guardians. Oh, let me just take a week off of work and kill 100 guardians.
So this was kill 100 guardians in Crucible?
Yeah, it was like, I don't even know how many fucking guardians.
Yeah.
It was some ridiculous amount of PvP action that I'm not going to do. And it kind of reminds me of, I remember how pissed people were in the Division 1 when you needed certain fucking fragments or some shit, and you had to go into the dark zone, the PvP dark zone, to go get them. And people are like, what? It's a looter shooter. It's a PvE looter shooter, and you're going to make me go into PvP to go get parts to craft for my weapons in PvE, right? So it's kind of the same deal. And and people argue like, oh, you're a fucking Care Bear and that's just the way it is, and only the elite get these. I guess so, because I don't know. I feel like that's just a weird way to alienate part of that crowd, because I would venture to say that most people don't do PvP in Destiny. I'm just gonna put it out there. It's not a great PvP game, especially on consoles at 30 frames a second. I mean, the shit's like PvP in molasses. Who wants to play that? I don't know. It works in PvE, but yeah, I don't know, man. Destiny's it's a strange animal for me. It's a love-hate. I don't know.
Yeah. So let me ask. So the single player content. So the lore piece. Are you able to get through that solo?
You can get through some of it. You can. I mean, I've done quests that all it wants out of you is time. And that's okay. Like, there are quests where, yeah, you're going to spend 20 hours to get this gun, but you can do it, and you can do it solo, and it's attainable. Some definitely require help. Some of the missions are just too hard to do, which is also okay in the realm of feasible. But then the quests that just force you into a PvP, I mean, that's just like, those are 2 different players that you have there. Like, and some people do both incredibly well, but I'd say a lot of people that get into that Borderlands looter shooter mentality want a chill experience and don't want that PvP in there. If they want PvP, they'll go play COD or Battlefield or something that's explicitly PvP. So I don't know. Destiny tries to do a lot of things, and it does a lot of them well. But it reminds me of oh man, when I first got an iPad, it's like, oh my god, it does so much well, but it's still not a computer. Like, it's still just, why can't I do this? Like, it lets me go this far, but then I can't go any further. So it's kind of the jack of all trades but master of none type of thing. Again, like, it sucks me in every time, and so it does something right. And now, with the increased frame rates and fidelity, I mean, it's just beautiful. It runs smooth and buttery and nice. And I'm thinking about playing it right now, but I know I'm going to get in there and play for an hour or 2 and get that armor envy and be like, fuck it, I'm never gonna get that, so I don't even want to play anymore. I'll go fucking stare at the wall or something, So, but I don't know. Whatever. I have been playing that. Okay, so there's my Destiny 2 rant. I have been playing that, and then I picked up during the countdown sale. I picked up a little game called Generation Zero, and
So,
I played. Oh,
so
go
I
ahead.
think, so I think I feel bad for you about this.
Oh,
But go ahead and
okay,
tell me.
okay. You feel bad. Now I have pity. All right, so Generation Zero I picked up, and I had played it a while back, and it was a really rough beta, I think, or an alpha, or some shit. I don't even know. It sucked, and I went back into it. I bought it this time. It was a whole 11.99. So it's actually kind of a little gem. They have something going with the premise is in the 80s. Obviously it takes place in like Sweden or some shit because the English is all weird. But it's like post-apocalyptic setting with robots. So not zombies, which I'm kind of tired of, but robots. And it's kind of neat. It's spooky. It's got a really eerie feeling. You're kind of the only one around. You can play co-op. And so far, all I'm doing is going around doing little missions like, contact a radio tower here, do this and do that. But you got to be really careful. Like there's no vehicles except a bicycle that I was able to get. And the robots are hyper like aggressive and aware. So it almost kind of feels like Dark Souls sometimes because you're just destined to fucking die if you get too many robots on you. Your guns are okay. You can start upgrading them and so forth. You acquire different clothing that gives you different buffs. So it's got really, really light RPG kind of mechanics to it. There's no like weapon wear that I can see. There's no armor wear. It's very basic in that aspect, but the gameplay is much nicer on the Series X. That could be part of the difference between the Xbox One X that I played the original version on, but it's a fun little game. I could see it being fun co-op. I don't know how much more I'll get out of it single player, but I could see it being fun co-op, taking down some of the bigger robots, looting, creating weapons. I don't know if there's like base creation eventually or anything like that. I don't see any building options right now, but it's just kind of bringing you through a map, and I'm assuming it has a loose single player story where maybe you get rescued. I have no idea. I'm only like 2 or 3 hours in, but it's fun. It's a fun little concept. It's a little different. They're I think they're a small dev team. Doesn't look like it's a big team behind this. But if anybody's likes those kind of think early access Steam game, don't expect too much, but for $12. It was $12. It may not be on sale any longer. Pick it up on sale and give it a try. It's a pretty solid game to sink a little time into and just kind of fuck around and kill robots.
Yeah, I have a tough time giving it a buy. I mean, and so this was a game that came out in 2019. I was very excited about it because content wise, background story wise, it's kind of right in my wheelhouse of the types of things that I like this dystopian kind of revisionist history approach. Mixed with a little bit of like a Red Dawn kind of play, but in a different country, and then you throw mechs in there. I'm like, that's like, what else do I want in a game? Spaceships, right? You add some spaceships in there, and I'd be there. But like, it's a 51 on Metacritic right now.
No.
It's a week on OpenCritic slash 49 for people who like lose sleep.
I feel judged.
For people who lose sleep over the big bad Metacritic and feel like OpenCritic is the road to salvation,
Right.
Because their ratings come out so vastly different.
Yes, a whole 2-3 points. I know.
Right. So this was a game that, like I said, I was really looking forward to. Avalanche Studios is small, but they did Rage 2, right?
They did.
For Bethesda.
Oh, they did Rage 2 that bugged out on me, and I've never been able to complete the storyline. So maybe I should just get a refund.
Rage
Yeah,
and Rage 2 fairly well received overall.
it was. It was.
Better than original Rage. Rage was kind of seen as like interesting, and an interesting, I don't want to say anecdote, but kind of so they played out a little differently. Rage, I think, was noted for its really pretty decently tight single player approach. People appreciated the extra content and the further distance travel in Rage 2, but didn't necessarily feel like it was as tight a story as Rage. So it was a little bit over the map. So I feel like that developer has some time in the deep end of the pool to have worked its things out. I'm not quite certain why Next Generation didn't quite come together, but overall, is it something you foresee yourself spending time with and going back to? Or was it just kind of an interesting,
I don't know. It was
over the holiday
definitely
science
just
experiment?
a stupid impulse buy. But I've also sunk in countless hours into stupid impulse buys. I don't know. Honestly, I think if you got a couple buddies in there and played it, it could be a fun, like Friday night kind of chill fest. Play a couple hours here and there. I don't. It's not gonna mainline anybody's gaming. I'm always curious to these games, like what their vision was and why is it lacking, so many things. Honestly, it actually looks pretty good now. There's technically it's sound. Some of the controls could be a little tighter, but technically it's fine. And actually, now that you mention it, the controls feel a little Rage 2-ish to me. I didn't realize that they did that. But yeah, I just don't know. I wonder if some of these studios just kind of branch off and say, "Hey guys, go. We want some sort of fucking game with robots, and we'll give you like 4 people, and go in the closet and come out with something." Like I often wonder that. Like, is it just a little side project type thing? Who knows?
Well, I think they had big hopes for Generation Zero. I think they thought that it was going to be the thing that broke them out. On their own, because I think
Sure.
I can't remember if it was self-published but it wasn't published under ZeniMax Bethesda like Rage 2 was. So I think it was set up to be like a game as a service, right? They were supposed to have legs to it,
Right. Yep.
So
it was, and I don't think that ever really came to be. So it's probably dead in the water, and that's why the price, sank on it. As it is, it reminds me of those games like 7 Days to Die and The Forest and all those kind of early access games that maybe were a pipe dream that never happened, but a lot of people still find really enjoyable. I just, yeah, I'd caution people if it was expensive, but at 2 lattes, whatever, it'll probably give you that much entertainment. The ROI isn't unattainable here for entertainment, but it brings to mind, oh man, like, yeah, 7 Days to Die, and how the console version ended up still being supported. No, I'm sorry, the PC version still being supported, but when Telltale broke apart, the console versions are like dead in the water, but still being sold. So you got this stale game that hasn't had an update in 2 years sitting there, still being sold for cheap, but it's still there because it works technically. But I wonder if this is just going to be one of those games just stuck in time. But you're right. There's a lot of, when I play it, I could see that there was a lot of work done in certain regions. Like some of those mechs are really well, are articulated, and somebody took some care and design in there. But then I also noticed that every house I go into looks exactly the same on the inside. Like IKEA took a shit all over each house, and it's identical. Down to the hallways. I'm like, what the fuck? Did one builder do this whole island? Yeah.
Like you said, man, if you're sitting around belly aching, grousing, you just got your money back from your CyberPunk refund, then
Exactly.
Hey, take 12 of those dollars and go check out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Take your $12, your hard-earned $12, and go check out Generation Zero. You'll get your money's worth for it. I guarantee it. Even if you play 3 hours, that's cheap entertainment. I mean, you go to Vegas, you put a 20 in a slot machine, it's gone in like 37 seconds. So, um, but yeah, that's kind of what I've been playing. I took a hiatus this week. I haven't been playing too much. Just haven't really been in the mood. I've been like reading books like I'm fucking 90 or something. But I don't know. Like it's a new year. It was just kind of shitty and rainy, and so it's been about a week since I really touched the consoles, other than doing my Game Pass quests, which I always get on and just kind of do because free money, baby. And if you're not doing Game Pass quests, go do Game Pass quests. Give Microsoft all your information for measly cents on the dollar so that you can buy $12 video games. That's my tip of the day.
Yeah, an interesting thing that I found out too. I assume you still have to be a Game Pass subscriber, but if you're a Game Pass subscriber, even if you bought the game, like I bought Anthem, if the game is on Game Pass, even if you own it, you still get the Game Pass Quest points.
You do.
Yeah.
You
So
do.
when I booted up Anthem this weekend, played some multiplayer with some friends of mine, my Game Pass Quest popped, and I was like, "What? That's weird. I own the game." But yeah, apparently that's the
Yeah, and
case.
you don't even need you don't need your disc. If it's on Game Pass, it'll just kind of authenticate with the library. So that's kind of nice. Sometimes I will literally play a game because I don't have to reach over, pop in the disc because it's right there. So that's super lazy, I know, um but yeah, no, Game Pass is great on that. And yeah, it'll pop those Game Pass quests. The Microsoft rewards will also pop for purchases that you purchase digitally from elsewhere too. And a lot of people don't realize that you don't have to purchase the digital game from the Microsoft Store. You could purchase the digital game from Best Buy or Newegg or Amazon. And once you punch in the code, it gives you credit for buying it from the Microsoft Store. So I don't know, man. When free money's there, free money's there. They're in my living room, so whatever. If they want more info, have at it. Privacy's gone. I don't want to get into that rant. But what have you been playing, dude?
What I should have said at the top of the segment was this is the part of the show that we call current gaming. So let's get it started.
Oh, all right. Let's do it.
So,
I wish I could hear these things.
oh, were you not able to hear that one? I thought I had it set up
No.
to throw out to you, so I
I'll have to
apologize.
check out the stream afterwards.
So just for those who didn't hear it, let's see. Alright, so that was the little kid freaking out because he'd no-scoped someone in Fortnite.
Nice.
So, interesting, man, so many segues with things that you said during your section, because I have been touching my Xbox Series S almost every day. I've been actually it's been very difficult not to, because that's where I've been playing Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War most recently, although I do have it now on PlayStation 5 and on PC as well. I kind of have to go back and forth because my wrists and tendons and my fingers get fatigued playing on any one platform. So with the different controller interfaces, so I go back and forth between the three. But before I talk about that, excuse me, puberty voice breaking. In trying to come up with like what is it, like what set of characteristics defines what I want to play, and how do I balance between like things that I feel like I have to play in order to be on podcasts where we kind of critically review and talk about games, versus games that I want to play that are kind of the games that I really love, but I also have systems that prevent, notably prevent myself from dumping all of my time into those games, because if I did, I would never play anything else, right? I would never play like The Last of Us 2 or Ghost of Tsushima, or all these other kind of critically important games to various platforms. So, part of the mix I've been coming up with is one, balancing that a little better. One of the things that I don't like doing is I don't like putting my head down and going, all right, let's get through The Last of Us 2, and it's like 26 hours, right? Or, let's get through Ghost of Tsushima, and it's 40 hours, and and in that whole time I feel like, okay, I'm playing this, but it's preventing me, it's blocking me, it's an obstacle to getting over to something that I want to play that has some enduring persistence in terms of its character progression. And these games where I have a build or I have a garage of like different vehicles or whatever. So so I'm trying to figure out what that mix looks like. One of the things that made the cut that is kind of in this weird space in between, right, to further complicate matters. So I have these things on either side of the fence, but then I have these things that are kind of in the middle. And one of those things is Red Dead Redemption 2, which I played on console in 2018 when it came out. I played it on Xbox One. I was not very enamored with the game. Still am not to a certain extent. It has a lot of these very, in my mind, tedious, mundane, low-level tasks that people think of as gameplay. And I'm like, okay, we're just going to have to agree to disagree, right? Like me spamming the E button to pick up a wagon wheel, roll a wagon wheel, and put a wagon wheel on a wagon, when that's not a repeatable skill, and I don't have a part of a skill tree that says wagon repair, and that, as far as I know, may not appear anywhere else later in the game. Like, that to me is not gameplay. That to me is not a productive period of time that I spend. Right, that has any return to me. Right, so there are things like that in Red Dead Redemption 2 still, which obviously there were in the beginning, which, one of the things that I want to kind of feel through this year and kind of think about and write about and talk about on podcasts is it, there are things like this, there are things like that in The Last of Us 2 where when I come back around to it for the second or the third time, they don't grate me as much because when I go back to that, so putting that wagon wheel on, the first time I played that, I'm like, God, this is keeping me from playing Destiny 2. This is keeping me from playing Call of Duty. This is keeping me from playing Forza, right? This is stupid, this is dumb, and it results in, if I were a viewer who gave numeric scores, this was also the type of thing that leads to me giving something like an incredibly low numeric score. When I come back to it the second or third time, I come back to it like, okay, this is a critically acclaimed game that I feel like I have to play as part of, like, rounding out my palette. And so I know that there are those things there, and so they're a little less criminal to me. They're still probably frustrating. I was listening to another podcast this week, and they were doing their Game of the Year rewards, and one of their, Game of the Year reward categories, they're a lot like our superlatives, so I need to go back and check, who came up with that construct first. I'm pretty sure Enough to Keep Going Weekly Games podcast did, but that's just me. So, but one of their categories was like game that you spent the most late nights with, like the game that kept you up the most late at night. And in some cases, some of their readership, some of their listenership said The Last of Us 2, and I know that I did like a 5-hour straight stretch with The Last of Us 2 at one point as well, into like the wee hours of like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I think one time I was up with The Last of Us 2 until like 4 a.m. But, a lot of those times were not, that wasn't the Civ 2 just one more turn thing of staying up till 3 a.m. That was the, let me push through this and hope by all that is high and mighty that I finish this thing so I never have to pick it up again. And so in Red Dead Redemption 2 is kind of in that ilk. But I also know that I can't do that because it has so much of that filler that you're just never, going to get through that. So, this time around with Red Dead Redemption 2, there are things that I almost hate to say taking a breath and appreciating a little bit more, like the long, interminable horse rides from the base camp to Valentine. Like, there's no way to get around that. Right now, there's no way to fast travel. I could burn the horse, making that run, but I'm like, but that's not realistic. That's not practical. Like, I know that's a gamesmanship thing you could do, but I'm like, I wouldn't ride my horse at, like, a max gallop, right? Like, in hunting, like, in general, like, hunting to find food to bring it back to the base camp, I don't know that I give a crap about that. but I feel obligated to participate in that, right? So part of my load balance this year is, so like I'm playing Red Dead Redemption 2 because I feel like there's a critical, obligation to, but by the same token, I'm like, the games that I like the most, to me, are the games I'll never finish.
Right.
But in a certain vein, in the vein of something like Destiny 2, I don't really care that I finish Destiny 2 because I just want to level my character. I'm never going to finish World of Tanks or World of Warships, but what's important to me is that I get back and I periodically dump some time into that to progress my collection of tanks and my collection of ships. And so in some ways I'm kind of porting that philosophy over to these story-based games, and I'm going to play Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm going to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, I'm going to play Watch Dogs Legion, but because with the games that I like the most are the games that I don't care about whether or not I finish them, I don't know that I care about finishing these critical games that I feel like I have to play and experience, as long as I spend some time with them and get enough of a notion of how good they are. So in that way, maybe there's going to be some decent convergence and some decent load balancing. And when I get tired of those story-driven games and I know that they're a finite return, I'm going to stop playing them and I'm going to go off and spend time, with something that progresses a character and levels them up and gives me a better return on investment feeling from that amount of time. So, but Red Dead Redemption 2 is beautiful. I mean, I'll definitely say that. Yeah. The port to PC, I think you may have noticed on Twitter, I posted on Twitter, and I don't post on Twitter a whole lot today because they flip out when I post too fast. But the in-game benchmark is a problem. I mentioned a couple weeks ago, I think right before we went on break. Yeah, that the in-game benchmark, which was what I was using, was the thing that was telling me that I was never getting more than 30 frames per second back, and I was like, this is an AMD Ryzen 7 3800X combined with an RTX 2070. I'm like, I should definitely be getting more than 30 frames, 64 gigabytes of RAM, and it turns out, and it's on a 75 hertz monitor, so 75 is my max anyway. But it turns out when I use the Steam frame rate counter, what I see is more what I expect, which is, I get frames anywhere between, 57 and 75 frames, typically more up around the 66 range and above. So, there's few occasions where it dips below 60 where there's a ton of bloom effect on the screen. So,
it's a beautiful game for sure.
Yeah, it looks great.
Sure, yeah.
Plays well. You got the Rockstar launcher thing, which you have to deal with.
I know. If what's funny is, I don't know. Those launchers are, I've stopped fighting them, but I hate them still. And I mean, that's part of the reason why I like console games. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't have to have a launcher. I don't have to have another fucking account. I mean, sometimes you do, but either way, at least they streamline it, so I'm not having to. Because you open it, it updates. It fucking, because no self-respecting gaming dude has them all running at the same time. No, and then you get into overlay hell, where you have 6 overlays. Oh, I'm sure that's not affecting performance somehow. No way. I don't know, man. It gets. I'm like, fuck, dude. I got the EA overlay, but it really plays in Steam. So now you get the Steam overlay, and you gotta have them both running, or Ubisoft. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, gets annoying.
And you would have thought that now we're going to see a lot of consolidation, and just like you mentioned, it's not necessarily. Sometimes it's worse. In playing Red Dead Redemption 2, what I found was that one of the default keyboard combinations for messing with your in-game overlay and bringing up your map is actually a keyboard shortcut for NVIDIA Shadowplay. So, or whatever. So when I hit the thing to try and
you're recording.
Right, exactly. So
yeah, no, I know, it's fucked up, dude. I was playing, I think Far Cry, when I finished up Far Cry 3 on the Ubisoft launcher, it had an overlay, but then Steam also had an overlay, and it was fucking some shit up, so I had to turn one of them off, and I'm just like, ugh, man, just, yeah.
And the games don't like that if you try and play without both of those DRM things running.
Right, I know.
So
anyway.
And then another interesting aside, right? Over the break, I bought Anthem on PC. This is one of the really weird games, though, where Xbox Game Pass, EA Play on Xbox Game Pass on PC was delayed, so now it's not going to come to 2021.
I know.
In this really strange instance now, Anthem is still only available via Origin. It's not available via Steam, and it's not on the. It's not. I don't think it's on the Xbox Store. So
how are you playing it?
I had to download the Origin client for the one game, buy it through Origin, and play it that way. Yeah, whereas on most machines, I've uninstalled Origin and just figured, well, I never have to see that thing again or deal with it. But guess what? Here's this weird game in the crevice, which is weird because they say that they're dumping more time into it. So either that's the reason why it's still coupled to Origin, is because that's the thing that they still feel like they own, and even though they're letting people have access to it via EA Play, they haven't let go of it completely. Because
you think they're going to let go of Origin completely?
I think they're going to let go of Origin completely because I don't think it works well with their new business model that they're trying to work towards, which is, in my opinion, sounds like we tried EA Play. It's not efficient. It's much more efficient from a money perspective for us to pay Steam and Microsoft to sell those games through their storefronts and manage all that. But when it comes to Anthem, I think because they're still dumping resources into it to make it a going concern as a game as a service, it looks like they haven't completely relinquished, decoupling it entirely from Origin. So we'll see. Yeah, but given that my take on Red Dead Redemption 2 is I'm going to spend time playing it, but I never need to finish it, I'm okay riding the horse, right?
Putting wagon wheels on.
And putting wagon wheels and petting the horse and brushing it and having to spend time, gaining horse affinity with each particular horse because you can own more than one, right?
Dude, just so you know, your horse can die, and I killed one of my horses, and I felt fucking awful, dude. I didn't have a horse potion on me or whatever the fuck it was, and it died, and I sat there and I played with this horse for like 40 fucking hours, and the thing died. A bunch of bandits killed it, and I was heartbroken, dude. I'm just saying, just have horse revival shit on you, man, because it's awful, and I didn't have a save, and it was just bad. My wife's like, "Why are you upset?" I'm like, "Well, I killed my horse." She's like, "In your video game?" I'm like, "You don't get it, man. Like, this is my homie. He is dead."
I felt kind of bad because I forget what the name of the principal gang is that are your antagonists at the beginning of the game.
Yeah, yep.
Something that starts with a C or whatever. I guess they killed the main gang leader's wife or something like that. But one of their gang was getting away. And I was going after him, and I remember, and it tells you, it pops a little tutorial up at the bottom, and it tells you, so you have to lasso this guy. And I remember the first time through, I lassoed him. The second time through, I just ran after him and shot his horse.
Oh, you fucking bastard.
And then got off the horse.
I feel bad when I was trying to chase a bandit, and the aim is just finicky, dude, and I end up just blowing some horse up. I'm like, oh fuck, no, buddy, I didn't.
Right. At first, I pulled my gun, and I was like, well, I chased this guy down the last time and tried to lasso him, and it was a long, tedious thing. And I figured this time I'm just going to try and wing him, and maybe if I hit him in the arm or something like that, he'll just fall off the horse. And I started aiming for him, and then I was like, screw that. Then I just shot the horse. So I figured it was over.
The bigger target.
Right.
Yeah, Red Dead Redemption and those moral choices. Like, do I want to lasso this guy, or do I just want to shoot his horse?
Right. So, the other thing I've been playing, as I mentioned, was Call of Duty Black Ops. And this is kind of the thing that led to the soul searching, right? I was dumping a lot of time into Call of Duty Black Ops. I think I am prestige level 2.
Damn, son!
Prestige level good. Well, the way the prestige levels work, as far as I can tell, is like 1 through 50 is prestige level 1, right. And then and so I'm on prestige 2, like level 77. So I think 2 runs 51 through 100, and then 3 runs 101 through 150, and so on. And I think there's 4 prestige levels in this first season because I've seen 4 different badges. So I'm prestige 277. I've unlocked like battle pass level 62.
Nice.
I go into matches now, and like there's not a ton of people. It's actually pretty rare now that I see somebody who has prestige higher than I am just through matchmaking. I mean, it happens. I definitely see them, but it's not like I go into the room and there's like a mid pack in the room, right? I tend to be
Right.
like the highest prestige in the room. Maybe there's 1 or 2 other people in there, and then of course you see the guys who are level like 113
Oh yeah.
or 130 something. But
Yep.
so I was dumping a ton of time into that game. I like most of that time I only played free for all. It's only been within the last probably in the month of December, probably mid-December, I started mixing TDM into that as well. I could probably gain faster even if I mix some other game types in there, but I don't have a lot of tolerance for like the goofy modes, of.
I don't either. I definitely filter out some of the goofy modes, and some of the ones that just take too long.
Right.
Like Seek and Destroy or something like that. Ah, fuck, dude. I don't have time for an hour match.
Right. Because the whole allure of the thing, and the reason the thing caught my attention, the reason the thing has kept me kind of trapped in it is because I go into a free for all or a TDM match. It's over in 10 minutes. I reset.
Yeah, nice.
It's kind of like if you ever played hoops, it's kind of like some days you'd go down to the park and you'd play hoops, and people would want to play games to 21. And the problem is when you play a game to 21, sometimes that's an hour, right?
Yep.
When the game goes to 11, you play a game every 15 minutes, it resets. Maybe you were last, like the first game, and then when it resets, maybe you're, second or third or win the game, right?
You don't have to just lose for an hour straight.
right. And that's
some of those game modes are obnoxious. I'm just like, nah, I don't. No, I'm not doing this. This is dumb.
Right, and so that has been the allure of Call of Duty. It's no muss, no fuss. You fire up the console, jump on the PC, you jump into it. I found some wonkiness with and even I became so enamored with the game, I gave up. I one of the things is with streaming. I got to the point last year where I said, look, I'm just gonna when I used to stream with the consoles set up on the entertainment center and wired over to one of my dedicated streaming PCs, which is kind of a pain. When I started streaming, it was much worse. I used to wire stuff all the way from other sides of the room to a dedicated streaming PC. I'd gotten to where they were on the same side of the room, but it was still like a long cable run. I got to a point where I said, look, if I'm going to stream from the Xbox for a week, I'm just going to unplug it and move it and put it right on the same station as a streaming PC. And so using it kind of in that mode, most recently I hit the point where I was spending so much time with Call of Duty and feeling so happy about, doing decent, not good. I'm not one of the top players, but, I do well enough that I feel like it's value added for me to play it. Instead of constantly coming in last, right, all the time, which is what used to be the case.
Old.
So, but recently I moved it and I said, you know what? I'm leveling up. I'm prestiging. I'm just gonna start playing with keyboard and mouse. Like I don't feel like this whole notion that it's dishonorable. Like I'm done with that. Right. So I started playing with keyboard and mouse on Xbox, and so that was yet another way to play it.
Works fairly well then. You don't notice any difference?
Nope. I without a question, I play better on keyboard and mouse, and so the Spank Factory is open right when I hook up the keyboard or mouse, to Xbox. It's not the overwhelming like I should. One perspective is that if I hook up keyboard and mouse and I'm a decent player on PC, I should just win all the time, and I don't. First of all, after I hooked up keyboard and mouse, and I noticed kind of the different way people move, right? And I was like, I don't know that all these yokels that I've been running into that have been spanking me on Call of Duty also haven't been playing on keyboard and mouse because there's certain
there's certain movements you cannot do.
Right.
And I've noticed that too. But when you do play with keyboard and mouse, since it's officially supported, you also open up yourself into those PC lobbies, right? You can't just play with Xbox people anymore.
That I believe. I'm pretty sure that's the case. I don't know for certain because I just play crossplay all the time. I never
Right.
like.
Yeah, I think from what they say is the second that you do go keyboard and mouse, then you could not just do Xbox only. So then they try to keep it fair there, but you will probably end up with. You'll be. I think you get priority to be lumped into those, mixed cross-play groups as opposed to Xbox only, groups, which is
Yeah,
fair. I mean,
and,
it is what it is.
and since Modern Warfare, there's something that goes on. Like I don't believe, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just naive. I've never thought that based on what I see during matchmaking, based on what I see, solely on what I see, I would put my thumb on the statistics and the metrics being something like the player base across Call of Duty is like 5% PC, like, I don't know, 60% PlayStation, and like 35% Xbox. Because even on PC with crossplay enabled, when I go into lobbies, when I see another PC player, it's only one. And
Right.
everywhere once in a while I'll see two. And overwhelmingly everybody else is on console. And I see the same thing when I'm on console. I see, with crossplay enabled, I see the overwhelming majority of players that I get match made with. So I don't know if that's, there are a bunch of people playing on PC that don't have crossplay enabled because they don't want to play with console players.
Yeah.
Could be. I don't know. So it's hard for me to get a track on that. I mean, my feeling from when I play on console is that so given that on console with matchmaking, I don't get thrown into a room with like 7 other people on PC. Having crossplay enabled and playing on controller has not put me at a significant disadvantage, to having crossplay enabled. So I've never felt the need to turn it off, to prevent myself from being match made with PC players. And the same is true for me when I play on mouse and keyboard or when I play on PC. Just because I'm on mouse and keyboard and PC doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to win every match.
No,
There are some really good console players out there who have figured
there
out how
are.
to tune their controls so that they're competitive with you know
I've seen console players that turn up their sensitivity to some insane fucking setting, and I don't know, they're ridiculous. They're monsters. I just don't even bother. I'm just like, all right, if he's going that way, I'm gonna try to stay on this side of the map because I'm not that good. Um, but yeah, no, it's good to hear that you're not getting your ass spanked all the time because I was
yeah.
worried about your sanity there for a bit. Like this man's only gonna be able to lose so much.
Yeah, I mean,
No, that's good.
well, and that I mean that's what gates it, right? If it was like the way it used to be, which is I was always last. It used to be. I mean, mid pack for the win, right? Was my statement. Like I just want to come in mid pack, But nowadays, where it's like more often than not, I feel comfortable that I would come out with a top 3 finish, and it makes a difference that you can say what you want about it. You can say that they've weakened it or made it less less competitive by declaring the people who do top 3 finishes and free for all as winners.
Whatever. I
That
mean,
that makes a
fucking
difference, right?
that's just how it works. I mean, that's how
Yeah.
the Olympics is. I mean, second place loser is fine with me. Third place loser is fine with me.
Right,
So
right.
yeah, no, I do like that, especially in the free for all where you're fighting for the top 3.
Yeah.
Makes it feel like you got a little bit of a chance because I mean the dude could have 82 kills, but your 42 might be okay to land you a second place victory.
Yeah.
So
And you're always at a disadvantage when you're playing TDM. Go up against people who are on comms, and you could tell, right?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
When you run up on TDM and people are moving around as squads, and like you never catch a person by themselves. They're always in like a pack of 3, like that. Like they're on comms, right? So, and that's fine. And sometimes you're able to. I've started pinging a lot more in
The
TDM matches.
pinging is good.
And people actually, the grid matches are where people actually respond to that and they go, oh, they're flooding over there. But you can see kind of the dynamic, the tide of battle shift, and kind of the geometry of the battle shift. I've definitely
you
had.
definitely feel some of those matches more than others.
Yeah.
Sometimes you definitely feel like, oh my god, this is a
Right.
clusterfuck. And other
Yes.
times you're like,
Yes.
all right, these dudes are at least aware that they're part of a team and
Right.
know where the flag is, So yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny.
So in combination with like I mentioned the soul searching that I've been doing, it did what it's supposed to do. They've found out the hook. You go into a match and as long as you do okay, you're typically going to unlock some additional attachment on a
I
weapon.
agree.
There's tons of weapons in each category. You've got the gun porn, you've got the cosmetics. You've got enough there to keep someone interested. And even if you're having a bad night, you just go in it. You have the ability to go in it and play 30 minutes and get 3 matches in and be like, okay, that's good. I just need to do that like 2 or 3 times a week, right? And I'm happy. And then I love my nights where you come home and you kick back, and that's what you got on your plate for 2 hours. And again, it's no muss, no fuss. I don't have a ton of like inventory management to do, or putting putting wheels on wagons and that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's
That
good.
just
It's good.
just makes me laugh. Well, with wagon wheels, what a segue. We are gonna go to the Wayback machine where wagon wheels once roamed free.
All right, here we go. Effects for sound.
Get your
Right,
hands
Wayback
out of
machine.
there. Wash up before dinner.
All right, so we got a little Flavor Flav for the people who can
All
hear
right, all right, all
that.
right. All right. So in the Wayback machine, we are gonna go back to May 2008. Um, maybe around when the stock market was taking a nosedive. Don't know, but I was still playing games. Um, and I was playing at the time Mass Effect. Now, Mass Effect changed my life. I have to say, Mass Effect. I did not play on the Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 release was actually sooner than that. I think it came out in like '07. Um, or earlier. Either way, I didn't have an Xbox. I had a PC. I heard good things about it, and I'm like, all right, I'll try this Mass Effect. Commander Shepard. Oh my God, that game was so amazing. That was BioWare. That was the BioWare that we haven't seen in 15 years probably, but it was an amazing game. And I think the only negative I could say about that game was inventory management became tedious after a while. I didn't like the inventory management. I liked what they did with that in Mass Effect 2. However, it was an RPG, and just like every other fucking game, oh my God, Dead Space, same thing. Every game they shift towards this like action RPG, from RPG to action RPG. uh, the controls and aim get tighter, the action gets, more often, more frequent, more visceral, and that can be great, but it kind of loses some of that RPG-ness. So Mass Effect 1 is still like has a place in my heart. It was one of the best. I mean, when I lost crew members on Mass Effect, I was devastated, even more than the horse in Red Dead Redemption. Like, I did not want to lose these people, but I did, and I forced myself not to go back because I saved often. So I mean, I could have gone back, but in reality, you can't go back. So I tried to play it like a real Commander Shepard, like I lost this person, that's fucked up, but I got to deal with it now. And I really liked that sense of permanence. The just like every decision you make actually, has an outcome that it can be beneficial or detrimental, and it didn't baby you. I mean, you fucking people died, man. They were gone. Like a blank shadow is now on your list of crew members that you can pick, and Jack is forever gone because didn't you picked her and she fell behind, and apparently if you picked somebody else they would have made it. And fucking, it all depends on your relationships with him and your reputation with them and how much they trust you and whether or not they survive.
So I know, I
Man,
know.
it was a good game.
So I know a couple weeks ago we asked kind of the quintessential question of each other of like, do you play with multiple game saves? Um, so I know that we do in order
Yes.
to insulate ourselves against bugs and glitches and game stopping crashes. Now, in Mass Effect specifically, so I know like on games like the one that I remember the most was like Rainbow Six Rogue Spear. where you're given a roster of characters, and you get the same effect of like XCOM and some other things where sometimes you keep a game save or you rerun a mission because a character was lost, and you're like, oh no, I want that character with me like to the end to use their skill sets or whatever. So my question is, do you use your game saves in Mass Effect to like replay decisions? Okay,
I didn't because that's not how shit is in space, man. All right? That's not how it works. There are no saves, and I did it on purpose because I could have gone back. And I would sit there and contemplate, do I go back? Do I go back? But in real life you can't go back. And I really wanted it to have some permanence, and I know people would play and play again until they could save everybody. That's not what happens in space. People die in space. That's just it.
yeah.
So I went in I went in with that philosophy, and I think it was really rewarding to know, that yes, bad and good. Like I was able to save this person, but shit, I wish I could have saved this one.
No, yeah, and I agree in playing that way. Like I would, again, I keep those game saves so that if there's a bug or a glitch or something and I have to get back to a save that I keep them rolling so that there's different save points in case I'm running into a problem.
Fine if you get into a game-breaking bug or something.
Right.
Definitely go back. But I've gone back before, and what happens is sometimes you get in a frustrating pattern where it doesn't help, right? So you try a different scenario
Right.
and do something, and it's still
Right.
so pretty soon I'm just aggravated at that point.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know what to do to get this person to survive this, so I just put myself in so I stopped that. Probably with Mass Effect. I mean, that's
Yeah.
why it was so game changing for me. Like, I cared so deeply about this game and my mission, and I definitely had relationships that were stronger with certain people because I liked them more. Going back would be disingenuous to the whole thing. Like, just to save this person that I really didn't care about.
No,
Why?
and right, and I agree. I feel like I agree. I feel like that's the most rewarding way to play it because that makes it your gameplay, your
Yes, like
playthrough, right? And
exactly.
that's what
Like
makes it
no one
individualized.
else. Well, I'm sure someone else probably lost the same fucking people, but in my world, no one else lost Jack, and I didn't like Jack. She didn't like me. She was kind of a bitch, and she rubbed me the wrong way. And I was a female Commander Shepard, and I didn't dislike her. When she died, I was still heartbroken. It was still fucked up. It made me feel things that video games did not make me feel, And I think Mass Effect is special in that aspect. And it took me a long time to finish Mass Effect. I only played for a while, and then I had my kid in in July of that year. So shit, man, Mass Effect was shelved for about a year probably with the kid. And I came back to it, and it was all still as fresh as it was on day one. Like I didn't even need a recap. Like I knew this is the mission that we left off on. Let's go, let's go. And that's just a special game, dude. And I think it's definitely one of the games that brought people into BioWare, and that got them that pedigree. And all the Mass Effects were good. 1 and 2 were my favorite, and 1 and 2, Mass Effect 1 and 2 are probably one of my favorite games of all time. And Mass Effect 1, the storyline it was really good. I mean, I can't say enough. If you haven't played Mass Effect, yeah, it looks a little rusty now, but we're gonna get hopefully a remake here, the Legendary Collection that's coming. I'm gonna buy the shit out of that. Maybe play it and by 2042. But yeah, no, Mass Effect was what I was playing back in May. And I finished it probably 2 years later total. Because yeah, I was just too preoccupied with the damn kid. Um, but yeah, what were you playing back in May 2008, man?
Yeah. So, whew, man, I'm trying to think of like where I was like in life. Kind of. So this is about to me and to me because other people's experience was different. This to me was the midpoint of the life cycle of the Xbox 360 because, like I said, after in the very late 2010, I got my red ring of death for the last time that I was willing to tolerate it. And so again, my life cycle for the Xbox 360 ran for 5 years roughly, and then I was off the platform for about 4 years. Grid came along, and as somebody who's a big racing game fan, but more importantly, in the Xbox 360, I talked a couple of weeks ago about how that cadre of friends that I linked up with in the very early days of the Xbox 360 in the launch window of playing Project Gotham Racing 3. Those were the friends that I was with, right, for the entire time that I was on the Xbox that first time around, and were my circle of friends. And we branched out from there and got into, the Halos and Chrome Hounds and Crackdown and all that kind of stuff. Race Driver Grid was a game that some people from that crew got into, not everyone. And so there were about 3 of us from that crew of like 8 to 10 friends that did dip into Race Driver Grid, had a blast with it. Grid has gone on to become one of those racing franchises that has endeared me to Codemasters, and that I've been on in some format in its 4 different iterations since then. And so that first game launching, again, in that franchise, I've been a Codemasters game player for a very long time. But that was one of the franchises in its early vestiges in multiplayer, because again, I was never a big multiplayer racing fan, because just, it's one of those, much like sports genres, it's kind of one of those where there's some spammy kind of, I don't want to say cheats, but like, people always find like the best car, and then that's all that they ever drive. And I'm like, well, that's not very, interesting, or, it doesn't change the experience that often from race to race. So, but yeah, I had a good time. I don't know that there was anything super remarkable about Race Driver Grid itself at the first release. It's more about how that franchise played out. I will say, one of the things that
it looks good.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that differentiated it from Forza is Forza Motorsport. I want to say the first one on the 360 was maybe 3. One of the things, the difference was in Forza, it was very detailed, and people were super detailed. They made the skins, in the livery, and those were available for you to download, and people broke out as making ones that were, incredibly, popular in comparison to others. Race Driver Grid kind of, I don't want to say dumbed it down, but backed off of that a little, where, they let you go in and just hit a random button, and you would just produce, like, a unique skin. And I was more of the mind for that, because, I don't have time for all, the artsy stuff, and even downloading skins, is a hassle sometimes, because they wouldn't always come down, and connectivity in the 360 days when tons of people didn't have broadband was always a little problematic. So,
yeah, it was.
So Race Driver Grid, provided that. Even when you go back to the first Gran Turismo, one of the things that I loved and that I hated as they eked it out of that franchise was, I think every car originally in Gran Turismo had a racing livery that you could apply. And then, in certain iterations and over time, they took that out of the game. So you would max a car, and then you couldn't put a racing thing on it. And I'm like, so Race Driver Grid in a lot of ways was kind of a harken back to that, where every car could have its individualized racing livery. Again, slightly different take, but it just made it easy to kind of stand out and know, which vehicle was yours, and kind of break yourselves off from the pack. So, I will also say the other thing that was cool about Race Driver Grid single player was it was the first racing game that I can remember where it really introduced that the AI could make mistakes. So the funny thing about Race Driver Grid, when you're playing in single player, and this applies to Grid 2, Grid 3, Grid Autosport, is that you will often be going around the track and you will just hear some calamity break out next to you or behind you, and you won't even see it, and then you'll look in your rear view mirror and there's just a car flying off the track, completely delaminating, and pieces flying everywhere, and you're like, oh, he screwed up. So it brings that extra feeling of realism.
That's fun, though.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I played Grid on the PS3, and I really enjoyed it. It was really one of the only racing games worth playing on PS3, other than obviously Gran Turismo. But and the multiplayer, people were really upset when they canned it finally. They canned the multiplayer, I don't know, 3-4 years later, and people were still into it, and of course people got upset about it. But Grid's fun. Yeah, Grid's a fun game, and I think I liked it because it wasn't as sim-like as Gran Turismo. You know, it was a little more arcadey. It just felt, but not Need for Speed. You know, so it was a kind of a balance of both, and I enjoyed that because I played the shit out of Gran Turismo 1. You know, on the original PlayStation. Was it? Yeah, it was the original PlayStation. God damn, I played the shit out of that game.
Yeah. So did I.
And
Up into the wee hours of the morning.
oh my
Um,
god, I used to do those, like, you know, 500 lap races. They would take like 6 hours IRL time. Like, I'd have to plan a pit stop to go take a piss and come back.
well, that was,
Yeah, it was good times.
and I'd almost forgot about that. That was one of the things that Grid introduced as well. Was they introduced, the capstone at the end of every season was the Le Mans, and you could choose to do that or you could choose to bypass it. But the friends that I played online with were very big about, hey, let's race Le Mans, and it
That's
was
kind of fun though.
yeah, you could race it. It wasn't quite real time, but you could
Sure.
definitely, like it was 100 laps or was like whatever
That's
something ridiculous
that's
was,
still a
and
few hours, I'm sure.
yep. And you would see on your friends list online people just like sitting there playing Le Mans for like hours at a time,
Yeah.
running the whole
Yeah,
thing. So
your fucking your thumb would just be broken by the end of it. Your hand would all be I don't even think I could do that now, dude. We're old. My arthritis would kick in. My carpal tunnel would just seize my hands up. Nah, it'd be bad business. Um, so we are done with the Wayback Machine. We are teleporting back into the present, back into news and controversy of the week. I don't know if we have a sound.
yeah, so it sounds perfect.
And you fail.
So that was the "and you fail" sound effect, which is
Basically.
probably apropos to our controversy section.
Well, I don't have anything to start off with just yet. I'm going to feed off whatever you might because I've been kind of out of the news cycle, but I know you have something. So I'm going to throw it to you, and you got something with our much beloved Cyberpunk that's still ongoing.
Yeah, and we can keep it kind of short. That's why our other two segments were kind of long. But same thing. I mean, I don't know that there's a ton of controversy that gamers have really been grousing about over the holiday season. It's also been tough for me to see it as I've been off Twitter for a lot of it, which is
That
where a
is
lot of it
true.
happens.
That is true. You got to stop spamming Twitter, man.
But the CDPR saga still goes on, and it's almost a little less. I think right after we recorded last time was when this notion of the class action lawsuit
Yeah, it was.
kind of. I think. This isn't a hardcore news show, so I'm not as wrapped around the axle about accuracy as I am about like some of the other podcasts that I do, where it is a news show. So I want to say that I think it is. I think it is official that one of the shareholders has brought a class action lawsuit to court in Poland against CDPR for. I want to say for the charges misleading investors on the state of Cyberpunk or something like that. But again, it's less so the news track and more so that I've just had more time to kind of think about. Kind of our initial discussion about all the CDPR drama, and I go back to this trying to nail down. I think kind of in the back of my mind, I was thinking like something about this just doesn't sit like as being fair. And again, I'm still on the track of I don't want to give CDPR a pass, right? They definitely screwed things up and screwed some things up. Again, I go back to but I can't say that they did anything that hasn't been done by other publishers and vendors in the gaming space before. It's not like CDPR invented the notion of not giving review copies to people. Plenty of larger publishers have done that before. I think one of the Square things that I landed on, because I always try and kind of come down on this, binary, is it or isn't it? Like, there's got to be a tiebreaker. Like, there has to be a perspective that you can look at a thing that says, is the cat in the box, or is it not in the box, and is it alive or dead, right? There's got to be a Schrodinger test for everything. Where I think I'm settling on this one is that, I've, first of all, continued with the thought of like, hey, part of this is driven by gamers. Gamers have to have their darling companies. And so, BioWare was one of those for a while. They've fallen from grace. Blizzard was one of those for a while. They followed from grace. Bungie was one for a while. I don't think Bungie has done anything to fall from grace, like a scandal or a controversy like some of the others have. But I definitely think that they're not as revered as they used to be in the Halo days, where like they could do kind of no wrong. And if I didn't mention already, I think, and Bethesda was one of those, and I definitely think Bethesda has fallen from grace.
Oh yeah,
And so
for sure.
And so where I land on this thing about them being delisted, and to me it's more, I don't know why, but it also seems like it was a bigger deal that Sony delisted them from the store than that Microsoft did. Like, nobody batted an eye that it got pulled from the Microsoft store, and I don't know if that's because Sony went first. But when Sony did it, again, I go back to the, like, so is it, if I compare that game to Drive Club and No Man's Sky, is it fair, right? Should those games have been delisted, but they didn't because they were Sony's properties? But where I land, definitely, I think it's still open to, being pulled apart, by others who will have a different perspective. But when I compare that game to Fallout 76, because I hold for that Bethesda has been derping things up for a long time, but they've been given a pass. But finally, with Fallout 76, I was like, finally, you guys see the problems that I saw before, right? And where Bethesda was not a darling developer from my eyes, their games were problematic. Where I lay down Fallout 76 and Cyberpunk next to each other, I go, okay, the difference to me is that Cyberpunk at least works on one platform. It at least works on PC. It's not any more broken on PC than like The Witcher was. All games have bugs, all software has bugs, but in terms of the state of its stability and its reliability, Cyberpunk 2077 on PC, as far as I can tell, is at least as good as The Witcher 3. Right? And that was largely deemed as acceptable. Right? The difference between that and Fallout 76 is Fallout 76, as far as I'm concerned, was broken everywhere. Right? There was no good version of Fallout 76. And a lot of the Fallout 76 problem was design and not even so much like code quality, right? Whereas, the Cyberpunk on consoles to me is a code quality problem, not a design problem. So to me, I'm like, okay, so are Fallout 76 and Cyberpunk equal? Cyberpunk gets the lead on that, right? Because at least I go, from a title perspective, I could say, if somebody came into a store or passed me on the street and said, hey, should I buy Cyberpunk 2077, I could at least say go buy it on PC. If somebody came to me a year ago and said, hey, can I buy Fallout 76, I would say, no, don't bother wasting your money on that. Right? So, I hear it's good. No, I'm like, no. It's not good on any platform. Don't buy it.
Yeah, it was fucking broken. I mean, it was broken. So yeah, no, I guess shareholders have a reason to be mad if the sales aren't, up to spec or whatnot. But yeah, no, I don't know why, the bandwagon kind of started on this particular game. And that's going to be an interesting thing to, in hindsight, when this all blows over, to kind of analyze, because I don't think we have everything that we need to analyze this. Maybe more information will come out of the studio. Maybe more devs will speak up. Who knows, right? I mean, with a project this big, there's bound to be, and I think that's probably it, is the hype, right? I mean, Fallout 76 was just Fallout 4 with online and more broken, and no fun, and and broken. So I mean, even Fallout 4 was fucking broken. I got Fallout 4 in release, and I remember going to a part of the level that they forgot to put in. Like, it was just like somebody smashed some low res gray textures in there and said, "Fuck it, that's good. It's Friday, gotta go." So I mean, yeah. I don't know. I think it's that hype train. The hype train was bigger, was going faster, and that's physics, man. It crashed hard. and whether or not it's actually any worse than any of the games that you mentioned is not even an issue anymore. I mean, it's just because it didn't live up to that hype, I think, at this point. Because honestly, people are playing it. I have a buddy Mike, who might be the only person in North America that's playing it on a PS4 and loves the shit out of it. Loves the shit. Been playing it since release. It's not broken for him. It's fine. I mean, he deals with it. He may have, glaucoma or something. I mean, who knows? He may not be able to see correctly, but he's playing it. So right there is anecdotal proof that somebody is getting, to play it on a PS4. Um, so yeah, is it any more broken than Fallout 76 or any more disappointing than Anthem, which I was really disappointed about? Because that also had a hype train going, and I waited for several years thinking it was going to be the new thing. I don't know, man. I really would like to know. The ball was dropped. The ball was dropped, and and I didn't want to be negative about it, but you could almost see it coming. I mean, how can a game live up to all that? I
Yeah.
mean, this game was supposed to come and replace your wife and cook for your kids, and right? I mean,
Well, and I listened to an interesting talk, on my commute in this morning. I listened to, I think she's a VP or an executive VP for Pivotal, who I guess just got acquired by VMware. But one of the things, she just recently wrote a book about cloud native software applications. One of the things that she wrote, I think her book opens about with the statement that it's not Amazon's fault. And part of her story was about how I think S3 went down on the East Coast. I think was the root cause. But I definitely remember this day. I remember being at work this day. I remember working in an organization that had some dependency on Amazon infrastructure, and I remember Amazon going down. And I remember not being directly involved in the systems that were affected, but I definitely remember, I've got a spidey sense for when I see, more than two people heading in one direction with two sets of tools. So I saw the bad scramble of people, heading for server rooms and stuff to contend with this impact. And I started Googling around on the internet, and I was like, oh, Amazon's down. And her statement was, Amazon had told everyone that, hey, if you put all your eggs in one basket, we're not guaranteeing that you're going to be okay, right? We have these things, these other things that you can do, but it's on you to do them, right? And that, to me, is one of the biggest stories, and part of the additional, thinking that I'm doing since our first conversation about, part of this is what happens with gamers, right? How many friends, and I know you got some, I know you got more than zero, right? How many friends do you and I have who spent large parts of 2020 saying, I don't care about any other game than CyberPunk? Yeah. CyberPunk is my one thing. I'm just waiting for CyberPunk. And look, when you as a gamer put all of your eggs into one basket, and this feeds off into other things than just release, all the people who put all their eggs into the Fortnite basket and then got all bent out of shape when they changed the game. I'm like, you need to understand that Epic doesn't care about your religious affiliation with Fortnite. If you choose for that to be the only game that you play, then understand that once they get your money, their primary concern is getting other people's money, and that means if they didn't get those other people's money before, then they need to change something to get it now. And if you're not going to be happy with the change, then when you don't insulate yourself against the eggs all in one basket thing, then this is what happens. It blows up in your face, you get emotionally impacted, you get bent out of shape, and you immediately start a voice track and a dialogue that starts me to turn your volume down, right? And I go, because and this is kind of, to me, what a lot of people did with Cyberpunk. They put it on a pedestal.
It was a self-fulfilling prophecy, and props to those people that did that and are loving the game, because I know that there are people out there that are absolutely loving the game and are totally okay with what it is, and that's cool. I have put it down after probably about 15 hours, not because I haven't enjoyed it, because I kind of want to wait on it. I want to wait on some more versions. I maybe will wait until an actual Series X patch comes out, just to take full advantage of it. I don't see myself replaying this game, and I know people will. Based on what I've heard, is the replay factor. I mean, it is there, but the endings all kind of are the same bucket of slop. So I mean, you don't get super individualized settings based on who you pick, and endings. So I'm not. Plus, replaying a game for me is a tough proposition. Like I just don't do it. Um, anyway, I've shelved it, and not because I didn't enjoy it, and not because it didn't run okay. I got other shit to play. I'm gonna let it kind of iron out. I'll revisit it. Maybe fall again when things slow down for me and I have some more downtime. It's a time suck. I know that I personally know people's whose opinion I do respect that have 100+ hours in this game and are really really into it, and that's cool. So I'm glad that some people are enjoying it and it's not just all a big old complainy clusterfuck. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I think we kind of all saw this coming. The hardcore fans would love it, and then everybody else that was kind of meh was be like, this is it, this is all you got. Like, it's running at 12 frames a second on my Xbox One. What do I do now? So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and the
Like,
last thing I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
And the last thing I'll mention is I've also seen, in this time frame, this has also fueled the people who, again, like love to take like the singular tentpole fact and say that's it, like that's the proof. And I've seen a lot of ascribement to this notion that like this is why the game should have only been PC and next gen, and I'm like, again, different software developers, different managers will have a different perspective, but I will tell people, and I'll tell you from my perspective, that's not the way it works, right? When the initial set of requirements was given, right, to whomever, and like I asked, I asked the question now, right? An easy answer that's an analog is, what browsers do you need it to be compatible with?
Right.
And somebody will say Internet Explorer, Microsoft Edge, Chrome, and Opera, let's just say. And I'm like, once you say that and I build my team around that, that's a given. Like, that notion that pervades deep into the development cycle and causes a problem, I don't buy that. And look, if the game is made for PC, it already has to contend with 99 different combinations of hardware,
Yes.
right? I don't believe that, and now we're talking about console platforms that are all on the x86 architecture. So,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned, it's not any different than just telling me it needs to be compatible with this PC. So this rabid concept that like it should only like shut up. Like that's if you're not a software developer and you don't know,
You
shut
have no
up
idea.
pushing that
You have no
opinion
idea.
because I don't
Yeah.
believe that that's the way it works.
Well,
From
they think
somebody who does software development.
it would radically change. Do you really think that it would radically change? Like, no, it
No.
wouldn't. And no, and a lot of these are. I mean, that vision. This came up with Halo Infinite. Not to get off track too much, but people are wanting,
And
Halo Infinite to be dropped from Xbox One,
yeah,
right?
and Spider-Man, even though Spider-Man came off
Sure.
successfully, people contended the same thing.
And I don't know what they're thinking is going to happen if that were dropped, especially now. Like, that game is done. Like, yes, there's more work to be done, and there's work into games years after the fact. But I mean, they've hashed out their world and their world sizes and their assets and how big this game is going to be to fit those consoles. And they will scale up to whatever is necessary, but it's not going to happen. You'd have to rework an entire game. It would be a new game. Like,
Right.
that's just not how that works. You can't drop something. Maybe next Spider-Man, next Halo Infinite 2, would benefit, from being spec'd higher. Sure, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think people honestly think that, and this has been the case with video cards through the years. You don't, I mean, yes, it's been 5 years, 7 years, 8 years between console, but I've also had video card upgrades throughout those years, and no, I mean, things get incrementally better, but it's not gonna blow your socks off, guys. It's not like that. I mean, it's generally like things get better, your shit runs those things worse, and you upgrade, right? And then you continue that cycle, and that's all it is to it. And yes, there's there's Moore's law, and yeah, you have to keep gunning for more power and more teraflops, but you don't. I think people expect it. They drop these original consoles, and boom, you're gonna have the messiah of games come down from the heavens and blow everybody's socks off, and that's just not how it's gonna work.
Right. I mean, to try and map it out for the people who don't understand a little bit. So they made a decision to put it on a certain number of platforms. Software is modular. So let's say, just to throw numbers around, nice round, even numbers to make things easy for people. Let's say that means across 5 consoles, 5 hardware platforms. Each version is 20 modules, and so I have to build 100 modules total, right? What I decide very early on is how many of those modules are kind of going to be common and are going to be shared, and how many of those need to be specialized and tailored. And my primary desire is to have a certain number of those be common across all the platforms, with some minor tailoring, right, that has to be done. And there's different levels. There are ones that are going to be common and will run everywhere. There are going to be ones that are going to be 90% common and require some degree of tailoring at the tail end for a given platform. And then there's going to be modules that are going to be hyper-specific to a platform, and they're not going to be shared across because of some specific nit. But by and large, I staff and I tool for that at the beginning, right? And then everything after that is a follow-on. And so once I'm at, and then the other thing is, again, I apologize if this sounds, chauvinistic or whatever, but it's just a common term in the software world. We have this saying that, 9 women can't make a baby in 1 month, right? Like, taking 2 platforms away doesn't mean that those 80 people, right, that were assigned to work on that platform, right, can now be swung over to the PC and the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5 versions, right? Probably what is most likely is those 80 people just get let go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's not a linear relationship, it's not a binary relationship, and it's not an if-then, yes, no, true, false relationship. Just pulling those two consoles off the table means is that news story, right, and quite frankly, the commentary from people who are incompetent and don't understand goes away, right? Yeah. So from a PR perspective, the marketing and the PR people don't have to deal with it, right? Yeah. But from a technical perspective, that doesn't necessarily make, my life. I mean, sure, it's a problem I don't have to contend with, but you putting that on the table, right? It was a problem on day one. It's not necessarily a problem that drives anything, at day 768, right? Yep. I make design choices, right, how things are implemented across the different platforms, but by and large, we settle into like a paradigm of what that is. We make decisions on, we're going to put it in this thing, not put it in that thing. And again, there's a desire to not implement a thing that is super hyper specific to one platform that is feature based, right? So it's not like I'm not going to include a line of dialogue, right, in all 5 versions, right, because I don't have enough memory space, right? Like it's more like, yeah, I'm going to do ray tracing or I'm not going to do, yep, ray tracing. Yep. And again, ray tracing is an API, right? It's not like they're writing that code manually. Right.
Right.
There's a ray tracing library. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but
there we go.
and that's that's how it is, and I don't think a lot of people understand it. So I mean, we'll have more discussions about this, but fact is that your games, these companies are not going to alienate a huge market, either. Yeah, like 9 million PS4s out there or some crazy number. Yeah, no, dude, it's releasing on the PS4 whether you like it or not. I mean, the shit could have ran 4 frames a second, and they still would have fucking released it. And then they would have patched it, apologized, gave you a skin and a gun, and called it good. I mean, that's just how this shit works. So I don't know what people expected, but Cyberpunk. All right. Well, we're done with Cyberpunk. We're done with this show for the night. So we has jobs to do. Vacation is over, and we are back at work. And and everything's in full swing. So we're back from vacation straight back into pandemic mode. Here we go, 2021. Welcome. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for hanging out with us again on episode 11. The internet needs to calm the hell down about games, and we hope to see you, again on next week, same time, same place. Have a good day, guys.